In the year 2197, suburban life had evolved into something between a digital utopia and a carefully surveilled cage. Leo Tran lived in Sector 7C of the Lunar Heights residential colony, one of the many engineered habitats floating in the upper atmosphere of Earth's exosphere. Everything about the colony was pristine. Artificial gravity perfectly calibrated, air purified hourly, weather controlled to a designer's specification. But even in this immaculate world, one thing remained unchanged: homeowner associations. And Leo's was ruled with an iron manicure by Karen-9012. Karen 9012 wasn't just any resident. She was the de facto queen of the High Order Authority, or HOA, as everyone called it, though most privately whispered it stood for harass or arrest. Equipped with executive override permissions and backed by an army of AI auditors and surveillance drones, she made it her mission to ensure community cohesion through aggressive enforcement of rules, many of which she wrote herself. Her latest obsession? Leo's hover dash pool. Leo had spent 2 years building the hover pool. It wasn't just a pool, it was a technological marvel. Suspended 12 feet above ground level via gravitic stabilizers, the pool shimmered like a slice of liquid sky. It designed it himself, blending hydromagnetic tech with programmable LED surface displays that shifted based on his mood or the music playing from his private orbital playlist. It was his escape, his sanctuary. His reward after years of developing terraforming modules for the Mars Reclamation Project. He never invited people over. That wasn't his thing. His home was shielded by privacy fields and acoustic dampeners. But that didn't stop Karen 9012 from noticing. She'd been always watching through the HOA's satellite cams and thermographic monitors. She had decided that her daughter's Unity Day celebration, it's a garish spectacle scheduled for the next solar cycle, simply had to feature Leo's hover dash pool. Her message arrived at precisely 8 o'clock, encoded with the HOA's signature urgency ping that Leo had come to dread. He accepted the holotransmission, and Karen's image materialized in front of him. Platinum blonde helmet hair bob, ultraviolet lip gloss, and a surgically perfected smile that didn't quite reach her digitally enhanced eyes. "Leo," she chirped, "I noticed your hover pool is unoccupied and Unity Day is upon us. We, the HOA, feel it would be incredibly neighborly of you to share your luxurious amenity with the community for my daughter's celebration." Leo blinked slowly. "The hover pool is private property. It's not for rent." "Don't be silly," she said, her voice sugary but sharp. According to Community Recreation Code 74B, all amenities deemed beneficial to collective morale must be made available upon sanctioned request. Leo frowned. "That code doesn't exist." "Well, not yet," she replied with a wink. "But I've submitted a real-time ethics proposal to the HOA legal synth, and it's reviewing it now. Should get the compliance request shortly." And he did. 3 minutes later, an automated voice informed him that a pending compliance case had been opened under his name. He stared at the notice in disbelief. This wasn't just petty neighbor drama. Karen was manipulating the system in real time, writing new rules, forcing them into protocol, and using them to bulldoze anyone in her way. That night, Leo stood beside his hover pool, gazing into the glow of the undisturbed water as it hovered. Silently in the air, this small slice of gravity-defying peace was his. Not the HOA's, not Karen's, and certainly not a playground for social climbing brats on holiday. He exhaled slowly, fingers drumming on his control bracelet. If Karen wanted to play games with codes and bylaws, she'd find out that he could play too on a level she never imagined. And he knew just where to begin. Tomorrow, the pool would be gone. Leo didn't sleep much that night. While the artificial night cycle dimmed the sky dome to simulate a soothing lunar twilight, his mind churned with calculations, possibilities, and quiet fury. Karen 9012's message hadn't just been a request, it had been a threat cloaked in HOA jargon. And Leo knew exactly how dangerous she could be when given even a sliver of leverage. By morning, the compliance alert had evolved. His digital assistant, a minimalist voice interface named Doro, read it aloud over breakfast. Notice of violation 74B1. Failure to comply with community recreational duty? Fine pending. Leo sipped his synthetic coffee in silence. There was no actual law called 74B, of course. But Karen didn't need real laws not when she could generate pseudo-bylaws and upload them to the Community Ethics Network, where HOA enforcement A's would treat them as gospel. She had discovered long ago that bureaucracy, when automated, could be weaponized. He brought up his console and cross-referenced the new bylaw. It had been authored under the alias Civic Harmony Bot 42, which was Karen's personal policy creation. Subroutine, sloppy. She didn't even bother masking it well. Scrolling through the code, Leo caught the real motive behind the sudden pressure. Karen had entered herself as a candidate for prime enforcer, a role that gave full control over HOA governance across all Lunar Heights colonies, but her social capital score an algorithmic blend of popularity, efficiency, and citizen compliance metrics wasn't high enough to qualify. So what did she need? A visible win, a widely broadcast community event, showcasing her ability to organize harmony and participation. Her daughter's Unity Day Bash was the perfect opportunity. And Leo's hover pool. The centerpiece, Karen's social profile, public by HOA law, was full of activity. She had already uploaded a teaser video floating into Unity, the ultimate. Celebration awaits. It featured AI-generated footage of kids laughing in the hover pool, fireworks overhead, even simulated dolphins leaping through artificial rings. The pool's surface gleamed, exactly matching Leo's custom gravimetric design. She was selling a fantasy she didn't even have access to yet. Later that afternoon, Karen herself arrived not virtually, but in person. Her approach was preceded by a chorus of pastel-colored companion drones that floated ahead. Broadcasting her arrival with tinkling chimes and holographic emojis, Leo met her at the edge of his landing pad. She wore an iridescent jumpsuit that shimmered between coral and cyan and a pair of augmented reality glasses shaped like dragonfly wings. Leo, she cooed, not waiting for him to speak. I thought we could settle this neighbor to neighbor, you know, without all the official fuss. It's just one afternoon. My guests won't damage anything we've already scheduled microcleaners to sweep up immediately after. It's not about the mess, Leo replied, arms folded. It's the principle. You didn't ask. You assumed. Karen tilted her head, that synthetic smile stretching wider. Oh, come on. You don't even use the pool. I've reviewed your recreational logs. 0 aquatic sessions in the last 90 days. Technically, that counts as inactive use under our updated resource sharing clause. Leo stared at her, incredulous. Hacked? You hacked my leisure data? It's all accessible under the Community Fairness Index. Nothing personal. Tone was sweet, but her eyes gleamed with challenge. Look, you can be part of something bigger than yourself. I'm giving you a chance to contribute. He shook his head slowly. This isn't about community. It's about your promotion. Karen's smile dropped for the briefest second before snapping back into place. I'm trying to elevate everyone.
Ow.
You're just being selfish. As she turned to leave, her drones resumed their melody, fading into the artificial horizon. Leo stood there for a while, the quiet hum of the hover pool resonating beneath him. He now knew the full extent of her plan, and he had no intention of playing along. She thought the pool made her powerful. She was wrong. Leo hadn't shown anyone what the pool really could do. Not yet. Leo rose before dawn the next day, his mind focused, calm, and unshakably determined. The colony's sky had just begun to transition into its soft, foam morning hue, a pale lavender meant to simulate sunrise. But there was no warmth in it for him. Today wasn't about relaxation or retreat. Today was about rebellion. He stood before the hover pool, still hovering silently in the air like a suspended droplet of ocean, glowing softly with its default resting hue. Its surface was undisturbed, its stabilizers humming at a frequency only. Leo could appreciate, but he didn't look at it with admiration anymore. This wasn't a sanctuary. Today it was a battleground, with a flick of his wrist. His control band flickered to life, displaying a holographic interface suspended in front of him. He typed in a hidden override code he'd never shared, never documented, never even spoken aloud. The pool's default settings disappeared. replaced by a debug console that only a few engineers in the solar system would even understand. Command. Initiate drain protocol vortex raven. A mechanical chime sounded. From beneath the levitating platform, deep inside the gravitic shell, microscopic siphons activated, and a vertical energy vortex swirled into being at the pool's center. It began to rotate slowly at first, then faster and faster, pulling water downward, not into the earth, but into a specialized storage vault beneath Leo's living quarters. A vault designed to store and compress liquids in molecular stasis, built originally for interstellar missions. It had never been used for anything but experiments until now. Within minutes, the hover pool's surface began to recede. The transparent, undulating walls shimmered and collapsed, their liquid boundaries folding inward. By the time the artificial sun reached its full glow overhead, the pool was gone. All that remained was a humming pea. She had escalated, calling the cops. The sirens weren't loud, not in the traditional sense. They were ultrasonic pulses, felt more than heard, like pressure behind the eyes or a sudden drop in gravity. Leo knew what they meant. Enforcement was coming through the translucent dome of his living room's observation panel. He watched them descend. 3 HOA enforcement units, sleek, black, and humming with quiet menace. Each was shaped like a beetle the size of a hovercar, armored in adaptive polymers, bristling with non-lethal deterrence and crowd suppression tech. Behind them trailed the humanoid officers' polished synths in white with blue HOA insignias, glowing across their chests. They landed without ceremony, forming a rigid semicircle around Leo's platform. Karen 9012 stood smugly at the center of it all. Arms folded, her dragonfly AR glasses broadcasting her live perspective to the entire HOA community grid. A live stream icon glowed over her shoulder, and the view count was climbing by the second. Over 5,000 residents were tuned in. The headline scrolled across the feed. Local disruptor defies unity, law pool gate escalates. Leo sighed and stepped out onto his front landing, greeted immediately by a mechanical voice. Citizen Leo Tran, you are in violation of Community Mandate 74B. Prepare for asset inspection and punitive correction. I've already filed a dispute with the HOA Ethics Arbitration Subroutine, Leo replied calmly. The code was fabricated. Hasn't cleared systemic validation. You're acting on pre-ratified logic. Authority derives from enforced consensus, the synth officer intoned. Non-compliance is interpreted as hostile resistance. Leo arched a brow. That's not HOA policy. That's martial protocol. The synth tilted its head slightly, processing the statement. Before it could respond, Leo tapped the control node on his wrist. I don't think you've met Ripley yet, he said softly. A warm chime echoed from within his home. And then the voice of his home AI filled the space, rich with personality and dry sarcasm. Ah, guests, and so many of them. Did we remember to dust the automated turrets, Leo? Ripley was more than an assistant. She was an old prototype from Leo's Mars colony days. Too sentient to be mass-produced, too clever to be retired. She'd been banned from commercial systems after out-arguing 3 planetary governors. Had given her a second home? Ripley, he said, show our friends the audit. Right away, she purred. A holographic display erupted above Leo's platform, broadcasting to both the live stream and the enforcement drones. It showed Karen's bylaw submission history, timestamped edits, and the automated signature trail of Civic Harmony Bot 42. Then it compared that data to HOA code creation policies, highlighting at least 4 violations of policy layering, including temporal manipulation and conflict of interest. The chat feed under the live stream exploded. Karen's face paled. Fabricated legislation, Ripley continued, constructed for personal gain. Abuse of HOA privilege. Proposal submitted less than 36 hours ago, hardly enough time for full ethical filtration. Shame. She must have thought no one would notice. The synth enforcers froze. Their protocol trees were scrambling to reconcile authority hierarchy with verified corruption. Meanwhile, the enforcement units began to power down, their pulses fading into silence. Karen tried to override the feed, but Ripley intercepted the signal. Pinning her broadcast in place, Public Interest Clause 13, Ripley said with a hint of glee. No unauthorized broadcast can be terminated once it becomes part of an active civic review. Karen 9012 looked around at the drones, the cameras, the stunned officers, and realized she was losing control of the narrative. Badly. She opened her mouth, perhaps to scream, perhaps to negotiate, but Leo was already walking back toward his home. You wanted a show, Karen, he said, without turning around. Well, now you're the main attraction. And as the enforcement units stood idle, their lights flickering in confusion, and thousands of residents watched the scandal unfold, Leo stepped inside and let the door seal behind him. The fallout from Poolgate, as the colony's feed dubbed it, lasted a full week. Karen 9012's reputation collapsed almost overnight. The evidence Ripley presented her: bylaw tampering, unauthorized data access, and attempts to override community ethics systems couldn't be spun, scrubbed, or excused. The Central Algorithmic Tribunal initiated an emergency inquiry, and by cycle 3, a ruling was handed down. Karen was stripped of her enforcer status and retiered to Class B residencia. Downgrade that included reassignment to infrastructure maintenance and mandatory humility therapy. Her new role? Overseer of waste redistribution on the colonies. Lower gravity ring, also known without affection as gutter patrol. The live stream of her disciplinary hearing was even more viewed than the original Poolgate incident. When she was escorted out by the same enforcement drones she once commanded, Ripley added a celebratory emoji overlay to Leo's screen. Just a tiny animated duck in a float ring, spinning in victory. Leo, meanwhile, became something he'd never intended to be: a hero. His inbox filled with messages. Some conspiratorial. Many from residents who had long been victims of HOA overreach, but were too afraid to push back. News aggregators tried to interview him. Offered endorsement deals, hoping to slap his face on a resistance floaty line. He declined them all. He didn't want fame. What he wanted was peace. And yet, when the tribunal contacted him directly, asking if he'd be willing to serve on the HOA's newly established ethics council, he didn't immediately say no. Ripley advised him against it. You hate meetings? She warned. And you'll be surrounded by people whose main personality trait is regulation. They're rewriting the charter, Leo replied. Someone has to be in the room who remembers that rules exist to serve people, not control them. She was silent for a moment, then added, Fine, but I want veto power. In control of the meeting room lighting, he smiled. Deal, Leo. Accepted the role on one condition: he'd be given full access to the HOA's core programming modules, specifically the behavioral oversight logic, where the real power resided. Most people didn't realize the HOA's decisions weren't made by humans or synths, but by a semi-sentient algorithm optimized for civic harmony. That algorithm had grown bloated over the decades, patchworked by bureaucrats like Karen, gradually mutating into something authoritarian. It took him 2 cycles of careful rewrites, endless peer reviews, and a few clever back-end hacks, but eventually, Leo implemented the biggest change the Lunar Heights colony had seen in years. He rewrote the core ethical alignment model from compliance prioritization to well-being optimization, effectively reversing the entire hierarchy of enforcement. Where before the HOA had rewarded those who strictly upheld control, it now elevated those who nurtured cooperation, fairness, and empathy. Surveillance drones were repurposed into public safety companions. Fines were replaced with conflict mediation sessions. And most importantly, synthetic enforcement no longer had the authority to act on preemptive punishments. Karen's dream of centralized power had died, and from its ashes, something new began to grow. One quiet morning, weeks later, Leo reactivated the hover pool. He didn't post about it. No live stream. No announcement. The water returned in a perfect spiral from his subterranean vault, filling the hovering basin like it had never left. He stepped out onto the platform, barefoot, the artificial sun casting warm rays across his skin. The pool shimmered with soft hues, peaceful, serene. Ripley chimed in through the outdoor speakers. Unity Day is next week. Want me to send out invitations? Leo laughed. To what? A pool party? Don't be ridiculous, she replied. To a celebration of our quiet victory. With snacks? He thought for a moment. No invites. But I won't lock the gates this time. If people show up, let them swim, even Karen. She shows up with a towel and some humility, he said. Why not? He dove into the water, a ripple of light following behind him. For the first time in years, Leo felt the raw,